Now, this is called the collective time warp. Sid dreamed an unsteady dream, and the persistent music did not really allow him to rest. After a few hours, he was no longer able to shut it out, and so he got up in order to take a shower. But the nearby water station wasn't operating anymore. In front of it, Sid met yet another familiar face, though. It was the girl who had played a fox in the film from which the mask on Sid's head came, and whose name he just couldn't remember. They made vague plans to meet again, and Sid went on the search for functioning showers. The Tower of Showers had an insanely long line in front of it, and the air around it was filled by hungry seagulls. So Sid ended up back at his prison cell. But he had to realize with terror that his book was no longer there. After briefly searching for it, he decided to go on to the casino. On the way there, he suddenly saw Lotte's face. She was sitting in front of the theater, wearing an orange shirt, next to another girl that was guarding the entrance doors. After a little introductory small talk, Sid asked her, "So what's the fusion? What's being integrated and melted here?" After she gave him a confused look, he went on, "Like, is it the fusion of different art forms?" "Yeah, I guess so," Lotte replied. And after briefly thinking about it, she continued, "Or maybe the fusion of you with the festival." "You mean you become one with the crowd?" Sid asked, and thought to himself that the fusion had not taken place inside of him yet. 2 unplanned encounters in 1 hour. Sid's fear of meeting her grew again, but he quickly pushed the thought away. He turned back to Lotte, who told him that she would be working here until 4. "So you know where you can find us," she said, and Sid went back to his tent, where he read some more of Fear and Loathing in America, which helped him to regain a sense of purpose. He had to sort his notes, and for that he needed to recharge his machinery. So he picked up his backpack and went over to the recharging station at the other end of the area. As soon as he had plugged in his laptop into the energy socket and his touchwriter into the laptop, a man approached him and asked if he could plug his phone into his laptop. Sid gave him his adapter instead, and when he sat down next to him and asked him for something to write, he gave him a paper and a pen as well. When the man asked him what acts he planned to check out today, they found out they were going to the same punk band. The man gave him a few other suggestions and showed them to him on the plan. "Don't go to Kollektiv Turmstraße," he told Sid, when he saw the big letters beside it, proclaiming "Avoid," which he had scribbled here earlier, because he knew that she would be there. Another man came along and asked if he could use his USB cable to recharge his phone. So Sid interrupted his work and wrote Franz instead, asking when he would be where. He wrote Phoebe as well, asking whether she was still there or had actually left, like she had hinted on last night. "It's all very interesting, but I can't seem to get into it," she had said. "Let your work be work. It's fusion!" A man with golden sunglasses across from him yelled out. Sid had actually just finished copying his last page, and so he unplugged his machines and returned to his tent. Then he walked down to the central omnibus station in order to get himself a ticket back out of this place. He had to walk straight through the city of tents, endless rows of temporary homes with thousands of people huddled together. After passing the giant graveyard of cars, he arrived at a concrete square, where after being redirected to different info points, he reached a fourth one, where a girl in an orange shirt asked him if he had mushrooms he could sell her. "No, sorry. Can I buy my ticket here for the bus?" The girl directed him to a fifth location, and as he left, he heard her complain, "I don't get it. Where do all these spaced out people on the dance floors come from?" When Sid finally arrived at the ticket counter, he was informed that there were still organizational problems and that the ticket sale had been rescheduled to tomorrow. "I'll never gonna get out of this place," Sid thought as he walked back down the path with the Soviet name. Back in the realms of the concerts, he briefly sat down beside a shipwreck and listened to a few people who played music on strange strings and drums, while others were dancing in a way that looked like fighting without touching each other. But then his stomach demanded attention, and so he sat down to find something to eat. He finally found something quite delicious for a price that seemed reasonable and returned to his cage with it. Fed and housed like that, he felt quite comfortable, and even though he no longer had a book to read up here anymore, he decided to stay for a while. He looked over to the girl beside him and said, "Could you give me 3 words?" "Relaxing, love, and true," she said. And Sid got to work in his little black book. The princess sat on top of her tower, relaxing. She knew she had nothing particular to do, and yet so many options. But as she gazed over the scenery, she asked herself who all those people were. Who could they be? And why is it that everyone you see seems to disappear the next second? She wondered as she looked into the sky above. You could make brief encounters here, but could you find true love? Sid handed her the paper, and as he watched her read, he wondered if she might be the one to set him free. She was the first one who had asked for love. But then his mind began to cloud with doubts about her interests and his own intentions. She handed the paper back to him and said, "An interesting resonance to my words. You can keep it, it's yours," Sid replied, and she put it into her backpack and returned to her book. Sid realized that he would have to return to the theater to meet up with Lotte before her shift ended if he wanted to see her again and make further plans with her about the evening that he could just not spend on his own. So he said goodbye to the strange girl and left his cage. But when he found Lotte and asked what her plans for the night looked like, she answered, "I don't know yet. The only thing that is set in stone is that I'll go over to the performance of Kollektiv Turmstrasse." When Sid heard that, he hastily said goodbye and began to stumble back to the magical forest next door, where he sat down beside the stage and lit his pipe for the first time today. He leaned back for a while and lost himself in the music.